Hey everyone, Kathy the Vegan Prepper here, and today we're going to do a little bit of produce prep using the tips and info in this book right here. Let's get into it. Vegan Prepper. Vegan Prepper. I have shared on the channel before how much I really love this book, and primarily it's like, I think that the fridge inspiration is incredible, and there's amazing recipes in here. This whole book is basically the Dr. Joel Fuhrman eat to live style of eating, and so the recipes are compliant for that. It is a vegan book, even though there's pictures of eggs and milk and stuff in the picture on the cover. It's because she lives with the author Kristen Hong lives with her family, and they are not vegan, but this is the way that she eats. And so she's showing kind of like, what would you do if you're preparing your fridge in a mixed family of, mixed dietary styles. Regardless, I have shared before my favorite part of this entire book, and the part that I think makes this book worth the purchase, even if you are never going to try to style your fridge. And that is the first section of the book. Let's go ahead and look. Not the first, but like part. Just let me show you. Also, this is not like a sponsored thing. Like, I'm not affiliated with Kristen Hong or what I think like Mariner Publishing or whatever it is. I just truly love this book and the info, and it's been helping us keep produce fresh in our fridge for a long time. And so I just really love it and just want to share it as like a point of information for you guys. Although I will admit, I'm going to stop filming down there. My gosh. I will admit that the link I'm providing below is an affiliate link. So it does help me out if you decide to purchase the book through my link, but you don't have to. Just go search it yourself and find it. Fridge Love. It's really easy to remember. Let's go ahead and get into the actual section of the book. All right, let's get into some of the stuff I really love about this book. I mean, the detail is out of this world. How to keep stuff fresh. Sorry, there's another piece like I missed, like life cycle, moisture, like it's just crazy. There's an ethylene, where is it? An ethylene chart, like compatibility of what works with what. But this is the section that I am most happy about and that I want to show you guys without showing you too much, of course, because this is not my book. I'm not being coy. It's not my book. Like, I don't feel like I have the right to just like share all of this information with you because it's not mine and I didn't write it. But basically there is an alphabetized section here of produce. And so like she shows you kind of going through quite a thick section. I mean, it just keeps going. And like all the way up to what was the last thing, winter squash. And so basic item in that alphabetized section has multiple choices for how you might like to prep it and put it into your fridge. And so for instance, cucumbers, which is one of the things I'm going to be doing today, there's an option for diced cucumbers, thick slices and thin slices. And then she tells you even like what is the expected shelf life of each preparation that you decide to do with each of your vegetables. And so basically what I'm trying to do now, not perfectly, of course, but now, like when I get produce, I like to come home and then before it goes into the, so she has like tips on how to prep and what to do. She is super organized, obviously. From reading the book, you can tell this is an extremely organized and methodical person. I like to think I'm kind of organized. I'm more of a spatial organizer in that I organize things like visually. I'm not so much a time management organizer person. Like that does not work for me. So the whole idea of making like having one day that I'm prepping all of my produce is just not something that works for me personally. So what ends up working best for me is to bring my produce home and then before it goes into the fridge, just prep it before put it into the fridge in its prepped form. And then that is how I manage to get this done. Just like every time I buy it. So anyway, we're doing cucumbers today, like I said, and let me go ahead and show you the other items that we're doing. First up is cilantro. And so basically the process is you pick out all of the leaves that will end up underneath the water line, put the cilantro into a jar, have filled with water, tent with plastic, and so I just used the produce bag that I got it in, and then that is how you can keep it in your fridge fresh for quite a long time, much longer than normal, and hopefully this will last long enough until we go through it, although we do go through it pretty quickly in our house. But yeah, so it's gonna go into the fridge like this. One tip I wanted to share is you have to remove the leaves that would be under the water line, right? You have to do it anyway. Well, I'm getting ready to make lunch, and I'm in the middle of making lunch actually. And part of our lunch is using cilantro today. So basically I just took all the leaves that I pulled out and they're piled on my cutting board, and this is the cilantro that I'm just going to use in our lunch today. So you don't have to waste whatever you're pulling out, just put it in whatever meal you're doing that day, and then you're good to go. The next thing I need to prepare are my limes, and I'm not doing anything other than just tossing these in the drawer in my fridge, which is basically what she suggests in the book. She has a whole temperature chart for all of the different forms of citrus that you may like to get or store or have on hand. And then she just sort of shows that even though a lot of times they recommend storing citrus at room temperature, the fridge is actually much closer to their desired temperature. And so I'm going to be tossing these loose into my drawer, but I am going to use 2 of them for lunch. So these 3 just get tossed in the fridge. Next up on my list, we've got kale. She recommends in the book soaking it in some cold water and inspecting for aphids. And then the way that I have decided to store it is to basically tear it up and stick it into a large half-gallon jar. So basically what I'm going to do is strip the kale, get it into my sink of water right here, and let it soak for a while. And then I'll go ahead and get it out, do the salad spinner to dry it up as much as possible, and then I will tear it into pieces and stick it into the jar. But just in case you're not familiar with stripping kale or what that entails, I will show you. I know probably most of you know, but just in case, you basically just grab the thick end and you just pull, and then basically typically wherever the stem breaks, that's about where you would want to stop eating, even though for me personally, I feel like this is a little bit too thick still. So I'll just grab it again and it's just breaking off again. And so I guess I will leave it now at this point. And then these, let's have a discussion. These are technically edible. There's nothing wrong with eating them. You can eat them. They're just not pleasant to eat. They're not pleasant to chew. So I'm trying to decide what I'm going to do with these. I don't necessarily want to throw them away, but I have also found even blending them into a smoothie, in my experience, I feel like the smoothies end up being extra bitter, and just like extra, I don't know, they just have like just a taste that's not very pleasant when I use the kale stems. You might be fine with it. That's just my experience. So I'm just going to go ahead and try to decide what I'm doing with it. They probably are just going to end up getting buried in my garden. So that is what I do with most of my food scraps now. I sort of skip the compost pile and just bury directly into my garden. I live in an extremely dry climate, and so it's helpful for me. That's a whole other topic for a whole other time. And so it definitely helps retain moisture in my soil and all of that stuff. That's again, a video, it's a whole other video. We're not filming that video right now. But just so that you know, yeah, you can do whatever you want to experiment. And in fact, if any of you have things that you do with these, to share in the comments down below, go ahead and share and give us some ideas. I also know, I'm pretty sure that there are people who ferment these and make them almost like little pickles and stuff. So I don't know, go ahead, tell me all your ideas in the comments below, but I'm gonna go ahead and get this all prepped and into my sink. Next up on my list are cucumbers. Now these, I admit, I didn't get to right away, so they have started to kind of soften and wrinkle a bit from the stem end down. This one in particular is kind of, but the rest of it is still nice and firm and unwrinkled, and I'm going to go ahead and slice. I'll do a combination of slices and the dices. One of my absolute favorite meals actually on this earth is diced cucumber and chickpeas with balsamic vinegar and just like a little bit of salt on top. It's ridiculously good. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to having that for lunch a couple of times this week. I'm gonna go ahead and dice some of it and slice the rest for snacks. I am using one of my favorite tools for doing a lot of vegetable prep at the same time, especially if I'm doing a lot of dices. So like if I have, you know, cucumbers, and then I also have, say, a bunch of bell peppers, things that I would like to prepare as a dice for salads later. I love this thing. It's kind of like, I'm not one for a lot of single-use gadgets in my kitchen. Although I definitely do have a few, but only a few that are like especially very good, and this is one of those things. And so I figured I would stop for a second and show you in real time how quickly it's cutting these slices. And so especially say you have a bell pepper, you slice the 4 sides off of, you know, several of them and just start going through here. You don't even have to do like I did. I don't know if you could see with the cucumber, I kind of measured really fast visually to make sure that I was cutting pieces that would fit on the squares. But basically it's just, yeah, that's it. And you just go through the whole thing. I bought mine at Bed Bath & Beyond. But yeah, I'm already through that whole pile of cucumber, and it's all pretty much perfectly diced and ready to go into my jar. So yes, for dicing, this thing is amazing. Right, my final thing is just a tub of blueberries. These are really, really good price, and so I went ahead and grabbed them. I'm just going to go ahead and wash them in my strainer and then put them in the jar, and that will keep them for 7 to 9 days in the fridge. And so also what I like about that is, and really all of this, so much of this, like I know that some of it seems really fiddly, and people will say, how on earth is it worth it or whatever? But honestly, when I do this, I end up running out of my produce rather than ever tossing it. Like it just doesn't go bad. And because it's already ready to eat and ready to go, people are more likely to grab it and actually eat it. So for this time around, for instance, trying to just save some money, because the power greens over at Costco are increasing in price quite a lot. I have just decided to purchase some greens and prepare them and wash them myself. So these are primarily a smoothie preparation, not so much for salad. We don't really eat kale in salads. But yeah, it's like ready to go. So now we can pull it out of the jar, out of the fridge, and it is just as convenient and ready to go as it would have been, you know, had I purchased it in a bag in the store. And then of course I like that it's, you know, a little bit less waste this way. But yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and get these washed, get them in the jar, and then you can see everything I did today. Yeah, I think it's good. I feel pretty good about what I did today. Here is everything that I prepped today. It honestly didn't take that long. It was not a big deal at all. It was just sort of like in the middle of making lunch as well and filming. Made it take a little bit longer this time, but overall, this is a very fast project. The longest, most fiddly one, as you could probably tell, was the kale. However, even that would have taken much less time if I had just stripped the kale after I had soaked it in the sink and like stripped it into the salad spinner rather than stripping it and then putting it in the sink in all those little pieces. All right, here's my fridge, which definitely needs to be wiped down, but there's all of the produce I prepped so far, and I wish that I had more to put in there right this second, but I just don't yet. I need to go to the store for some more, but here we go. What we have is ready to go, and I am looking forward to the convenience of being able to use these just as they are. My fridge is definitely not going to win any prizes. I do not have a beautiful fridge. I definitely haven't mastered the art of this art of making it beautiful like this. But, you know, and honestly, it's not really my goal to do that. If I'm totally honest, it's just to get the food prepped, just to get everything set and ready to go so that we're more likely to get through the produce. And boy, when I prep it like this, we get through that produce. And again, it really doesn't take that much time. In fact, I believe personally, it takes less time to wash it and get it all prepared in advance because you're doing it all in batches than it does to wash and prepare and get everything together at the time that you would normally be doing that, if that makes sense. Like it makes a lot more sense. It saves a lot of time, I think, to just sort of do it in advance versus doing it as you go. And then again, it just makes it so much more likely that your family will actually eat the produce. If the blueberries are as easy to grab as the chips, then blueberries can get chosen sometimes instead of chips, and all of that. So anyway, one more thing I wanted to mention, because of course there is one more thing, there's always one more thing I want to mention for the blueberries specifically, because in the book, she talks about how the blueberries can last anywhere from 7 to 9 days, like even in their, I think it might have just been 7 in their original packaging. Whereas when they go into the jar, they last 7 to 9 days. So you don't really necessarily gain all that much time in the jar. And so then what would be the point of pre-washing them and putting them in a jar? Well, because honestly too, like at the time, it doesn't take that much time to just sort of run them in a strainer under water. The thing that I have discovered though, doing it this way, is I take my hand on purpose and just gently go through the blueberries while I'm in the strainer, or while they're in the strainer. And then if my hand or my finger encounters squishy ones or like ones that don't quite feel right, and as I'm watching and I'm looking at the blueberries as I'm washing them, I can pick out any that have little mold spots. I can pick out the ones that have already squashed and have started to release their juices and potentially would encourage mold and decay in the jar, and get those totally clear so that all of the blueberries that are still nice and firm and clean and good, those are the ones that are going into the jar. And so they're not sitting in the fridge with already broken, possibly molding berries. They're already separated from all that, and then I think that they end up lasting longer and just doing better. And so I do appreciate pre-washing a lot of that stuff. One thing she does not talk about in the book that I definitely advocate myself is to wash anything like especially strawberries or raspberries. Those tend to go bad, raspberries especially, really quickly. Blueberries I think do a little better because their skin is, I don't know what the right word for it would be. It's like a little bit more solid almost than the skin of a strawberry or a raspberry. I think you know what I'm talking about. But With the strawberries and raspberries, this is just like my tip, and I've mentioned it before in my videos, if you put them into a sink of water with a little bit of apple cider vinegar in the water, not a ton, and then don't leave them for a very long time, but you put them in there, let them swish around for a few seconds, and then pull them out. The vinegar helps to kill mold spores and anything like that. Then you take those berries, if you let them dry pretty thoroughly on towels, you can take another towel like on top and kind of pat them, put them in a jar or a container, and then lay a paper towel or a cloth on top of the berries, close it, and then flip it upside down. And then basically throughout your week, a week or two, because they'll last for like 2 weeks sometimes in the fridge when you do it like that, change out that paper towel, change out that cloth, like every couple days, and you will end up making those berries last for such a long time in the fridge, way longer than you normally would get out of them, which is super handy if you find a screaming deal on berries, especially during summertime. And so that was just my tip, not hers. Overall, this is an incredible book and I can't recommend it enough. So hopefully you got something good out of that. If you have anything to share or say down in the comments down below, please let me know. And as always, I hope the rest of your day is good and your life stays wonderful. Thank you so much for watching. See you guys next time.